Can pre-draft visits and the Packers pro day schedule tell us anything about where they're going to pick at the top of this draft? Let's read some tea leaves on today's Locked On Packers.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. It's that time where we go, okay, how can we handicap who the Packers are going to pick in this upcoming draft? We've got Packers types. We've had a lot of discussions about those players. We're starting to narrow in as we get a fuller view of the testing in the top 100. And I did a series last year. I said, here's, 3 or 4 players, round 1, round 2, round 3 that I think the Packers could take. And I think we hit on all 3 rounds last year. I think we did. I'm going to have to go back and double check, but I think we did. Because I think I gave you Cooper, Bullard, and Jordan Love, my goodness. Jordan Morgan. At least I got the first name right. So we can know a little bit about the Packers' preferences and trying to extrapolate out. There's 2 positions the Packers have seemed to show the most interest in so far. They've had 3 projected first-round edge rushers in. Micah Williams, Shamar Stewart, and James Pierce Jr. Now, there are reasons to have all 3 in the building if you have interest in them. Shamar Stewart, next to no productivity at Texas A&M, 4.5 career sacks. James Pierce Jr. has attitude, culture, off-field questions. Is he coachable? These kinds of things. Micah Williams does not have a ton of production, but a young player and played, like a kind of a different position. He was that Trayvon Walker at times. I'm going to play 4-eye, which was the Rashawn Gary spot in Michigan. What do they think that they can provide outside of that? That being said, we have seen the Packers do this before. In 2019, they showed interest in all of the top pass rushers, had official combine visits and top 100 visits, top 30 visits, which are not really top 30 visits, but you get 30 of them. With everyone but Rashawn Gary. In 2018, it was cornerbacks, but not Jai Alexander. In 2023, it was tight ends, but not Luke Musgrave. So if we're trying to work that out, okay, if they want an edge rusher specifically, and I think this is interesting, then, okay, you think, okay, no Pierce, no. If we're gonna follow this path of let's do the diligence on all these other guys to go, hey, we really like X, this player. Let's make sure we don't like one of these other players more. It's almost like you start dating someone and you go, I really like this person, but you also got a chance to go on a couple other dates with some other people and go, I don't really like that person. That person's not for me. And you get a better sense of what you are looking for, what you like about this person. And now, hey, all right, we're locked in. So, okay, does that mean Mike Green from Marshall? Does that mean Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College? Does that mean Landon Jackson from Arkansas? These are the kinds of names we're looking at here. And Green and Ezeraku would be smallish for the Packers, but are athletic enough. Landon Jackson from Arkansas checks every box. He, I think right now, is the dark horse pick at 23. where everyone go, whoa, what, huh? Interesting. But you'd understand it immediately with the superlative athletic profile. And again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. You want a proof of concept game, go back and watch him against Alabama in 2023. He wrecked that game. Wrecked that game. So for our tea leaf reading here, there's also the other side of this is if they are looking at all these top pass rushers and we just assume, okay, Mike Green and Donovan Ezraku are too small. Could it be that what they're really doing is they've zeroed in on one of these top defensive tackles? Now, Walter Nolan went through drills at Ole Miss Pro Day, did not go through athletic testing. Derek Harmon did some testing, not all the testing, not enough to have a relative athletic score. If the Packers were to take Derek Harmon, he would be the only player in the Brian Gutekunst era in the first round to be drafted without enough athletic testing, publicly available athletic testing, to qualify for relative athletic score. Whether the Packers use that or not is irrelevant. They clearly use some athletic model, and he only ran the 40. Interesting. Could that be what they're doing here? The other position is receiver. The Tetairoa McMillan special workout, Ryan Gutekunst was the only general manager in attendance at that workout. From what I was told, the Packers spent a particularly long amount of time with Mr. McMillan at that workout, more than anyone else. We had the report from Toli Pauline that they are expected by other teams to be in the market for a first-round receiver, potentially. They were at the Ohio State Pro Day, Emeka Egbuka. They were at the Texas Pro Day. You've got Matthew Golden. Now they were at the Alabama Pro Day. There's no first-round receiver there this year, next year for sure. They were at the Oregon Pro Day. There's no first-round receiver there. Now there are plenty of other players at those places. Now there, interestingly, are potential first-round offensive linemen. Josh Connerly at Oregon. Kelvin Banks at Texas. Josh Simmons at Ohio State. Now he's a guard. Tyler Booker at Alabama. And I don't think from an athletic model standpoint, that would make sense for them. But it's worth mentioning if they want to go offensive line in the first round. I am of the belief right now, today, as we stand here, that they are very much in the market for a pass rusher and or a receiver at the top of the draft. And they may even go 1-2 in terms of 23 and then 54. And I think this year there is a higher than normal chance they take a receiver, even if that chance is not even at 50-50. Like if the average day in a draft is 90-10, they won't take one. I think this is more like 60-40. They won't. Maybe even 55-45. Like I think it's close. I think if the right player is there, and I don't know that the right player exists in this draft. Like I think if Ted McMillan is there at 23, the Packers would draft him. And I think one of the reasons is if he is, it's probably because some of the other premium position players went ahead of him. Because by definition, if he's not going, someone else has to be going. So right now, I had been, as of like last week, going, hey, Derek Harmon banging the drum, banging the table. I'm backing off that a little bit because of all this interest in edge rushers. I'm a little surprised. They haven't shown more interest in some of these defensive tackles. And maybe it's because Mason Graham is going to go in the top 10 in all likelihood. You don't get anything from Walter Nolan. And there's also some other questions to be answered there with him. Derek Harmon does not have the full battery of athletic tests. I'm not saying that they're going to shy away from these guys for that reason, but you want the cleanest prospect you can find in round one. We talked about clean prospects last week. Is it now the case that some of these other guys, do you just feel more confident in the eval when you have those players? And we've talked about this in the past. These edge rushers, you look at the Packers roster. Rashawn Gary was drafted in the first round weeks after they signed Preston and Zadarius Smith. So they value third edge rusher pretty highly. Lucas Van Ness was drafted in 2013 or 20 at 13 in 2023 when Rashawn Gary, brand new mega deal, and Preston Smith projected to be on the team at least 2 more years. They'd just taken Kingsley Enagbare. Well, Enagbare is up at the end of this year. Brenton Cox had a nice end of last season. Might not be on this team next year. So there's a lot of questions. You add another player to that timeline. Lucas Van Ness steps in as your starter. You add another guy. And in 2 years, who knows? Rashawn Gary, what does his future look like? And you always need at least 3 guys on the edge. I'm starting to look a little bit more closely at the Packers going on edge at 23 versus defensive tackle. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm overreading it. But they have a history here. And Brian Gutekunst, look, he took Devontae Wyatt. But the Packers, by and large, you look at, the Ted Thompson drafts. Kenny Clark, Justin Harrell, BJ Raji, they took plenty of tackles. I don't know if that's the league anymore, though. And there's all these 2026 questions that we have to answer. In fact, let's try and answer some next on Locked On Packers. March Madness is here. In fact, March Madness is winding down, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before, so don't miss your opportunity. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. You're going to get shorter odds than you would have a week or two ago. But hey, now you got, more information, maybe a better chance to actually be right this time. And FanDuel makes it easy to back any of your picks with spreads, totals, game props, and much more. With the tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. We've got Ladies Elite 8 tonight. Paige Beckers, USC. Wish Juju Watkins was playing. Unfortunately, had an ACL injury. Wish her the best. And I wish we got to see that. We're not going to see it next year because Paige is going to the dub. FanDuel is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. Just visit FanDuel.com to get in on all the college hoop action all tournament long. So here's the problem the Green Bay Packers face in 2026. They are under the cap in 2026. That's not really the problem. If you need to field a team, that might be problematic. They have 29 players currently under contract in 2026. 29. I don't know if you know this. You need 53. 29 is not going to do it. Now, and that 29 includes Jair Alexander, who is almost certainly not going to be on this team. Here's the other interesting thing about this. Other than players on rookie contracts, the only player with guaranteed salary in 2026 is Jordan Love. 49.9 of that salary is guaranteed. Now, part of that is prorated bonuses and all these things, but they have questions because they've got guys coming up. Zach Tom, an unrestricted free agent. Quay Walker, an unrestricted free agent. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, unrestricted free agents. Rasheed Walker, Kingsley Enagbare, Sean Ryan, Devontae Wyatt, Malik Willis, Malik Heath, Ben Sims, Bo Melton, Emmanuel Wilson, Brenton Cox, Zane Anderson. I know that not all of those players that I mentioned are frontline players. Zach Tom, starter. Quay Walker, starter. Romeo Doubs, starter. Christian Watson, starter. Rasheed Walker, starter. Sean Ryan, starter. That's 6 starters who are not under contract in 2026. Kingsley Enagbare is their 3rd edge rusher. And in fact, last year after they traded Preston Smith was the starter. I don't know if he's going to go into this season as the presumed starter. So that's 7. Devontae Wyatt is a crucial part of the rotation on this defense. That's 8. Ben Sims plays real snaps. Malik Heath plays real snaps. Emmanuel Wilson plays real snaps. That's a lot of players that you have to account for in 2026. This is why, if you're making the case for trading down, you've got the value of this draft in pick, 20 through 70. And this team needs some cheap players on the roster, some cost-controlled players. Not that they're strapped, but you're going to have to pay Zach Tom. If you want a linebacker, you're probably going to have to pay either Quay Walker or someone else, because it doesn't look like they have another Mike linebacker on the roster. You have a decision to make on Devontae Wyatt. You have a decision to make on Sean Ryan. And given the money for these guards, it's going to cost real money for Sean Ryan to be a starter. John Rennie Jr. got 10. Now, that did not work out well for the Giants. But if you're Sean Ryan, given the guard market right now, you hit free agency, it's 12, it's 14, easy for a capable starting guard. If I'm the Packers, maybe you just pay it, but you got to pay Rasheed Walker. You got to pay Zach Tom. 3 of their 5 offensive linemen come up for contracts next spring. This is why I've been saying, look at the trade market for Rasheed Walker. Look out for a Zach Tom extension. They need to get this stuff squared away. And it's why you can't rule out offensive line at the top of this draft. Now, again, they have not showed a ton of interest at the top. I think round 4, where they just crush this, round 5, even round 3. That's where I've been as I'm doing these mock drafts. Been trying to find someone round 3, round 4, round 5. That's, I think, where you throw some capital at it. You've got Jordan Morgan, who you think can come in and start for you. Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan. That's 4 of 5. So if what you need is another right guard, or you think you can extend Sean Ryan at a reasonable price, or you have Jordan Morgan play right guard and now you need a left tackle, that's risky, I think. All of a sudden, that cap space that you have, that $35 or $25 million in 2026. Again, that doesn't include Jair Alexander. This is one reason why, if you're going to move on from Jair Alexander, you wouldn't make it a post-June 1, because you'd want to take all of the cap savings now versus spreading it out, because you want him off the books in 2026. He counts $27 million on the cap in 2026, but Kenny Clark counts $31 million on the cap in 2026. So those 2 guys alone, you don't have to make any decisions. If you're going to move on from Kenny Clark in 2026, you're not going to save all of that $31 million. But moving on from Kenny Clark, you would save $14 million in cap space. You could post June 1 him if you wanted. Brian Gutekunst said, look, a healthy roster, you always have some dead money. But this is why the volume issue persists for them in this draft. They need 6, 7, 8 guys who can play now, or at least who can be rostered now. Now, some of these guys will get extensions. Like Zach Tom is going to get an extension. Beyond that, we don't really know. So you need bodies on the offensive line. You need bodies at receiver. Whether it's premium bodies or not, you need bodies that can pass rush, with Enigbare and Devontae Wyatt out the door, and then Carl Brooks a year from that coming up. But 3 of your top 5 and 4 of your top 6 receivers are unrestricted. Bo Melton is an exclusive rights free agency, so you can keep him for nothing. And Malik Heath is a restricted free agent, but you still got to put a tender on him. So you have at least 2 of your starting receivers up. This creates some decisions that the Packers have to make. And this is why predicting this draft is so difficult. I think this will tell us a lot. If they don't take a defensive tackle in the top 100, what they are signaling to us is Kenny Clark is a part of the future of this team, and we're going to try and figure out something with Devontae Wyatt. If they don't take a receiver in the top 100 in this draft, what it signals to us is, hey, maybe we're going to consider an extension with Romeo Doubs. Maybe a 1-year prove-it deal for Christian Watson makes sense. No, they can't be sure of any of that right now. No doubt they've had some discussions, some initial conversations. But this draft will tell us about their plan for next year. It almost always does. The Packers are regularly in the mindset of we are trying to plan for next year and the year after that. Because, and this will go on my gravestone, most rookies are bad. Trying to project who they're going to take based on year one is a fool's errand. It's what you want them to do. It is not always what they want to do. What they want to do almost always is find someone that over the life of their rookie contract and beyond is going to make a big impact on this team. And that means taking the roster construction into account. If you don't, you're just missing an enormous piece of the puzzle. This 2026 situation for them is huge. So if they take a defensive tackle in the first round, I think that tells us a lot about the future of Devontae Wyatt and or Kenny Clark. If they take a receiver in the first round, it's over. Like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, bye. Probably. Now, they probably need to take a pass rusher anyway. So if they take an edge rusher, that just probably means Kingsley Enagbare walks out the door. Not the end of the world. You're hoping if you're going to draft someone in the first round, they're an upgrade on Enagbare anyway. I have always been a big fan of Enagbare, but he's not a field tilter. He's a quality rotational pass rusher. If you can upgrade on that, you try to do it. You try to do it. All right, let's do, taking everything, all of this into account, let's do a mock draft Monday next on Locked On Packers. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, we got a new mock draft simulator today. We're going to use the NFL mock draft database simulator. I see some of you out there using this. So I'm going to, I got 23, I got 54, and I got 87. I mentioned the idea of trading down, and I think it's worth having this idea in mind. Okay, I've got a trade offer. 2026 third round pick. No. No. Okay. Best players available. Shamar Stewart at 13. Kenneth Grant. James Pierce. Tyler Booker. Walter Nolan. Donovan Izaraku. I haven't done Shamar Stewart in a while. He's the highest graded player here. I think Donovan Izaraku is very much in play here. But just for the sake of having some fun, I do think they would be very interested in Shamar Stewart. By the way, Emeka Egbuka went one pick before Green Bay. If he's on the board, I think he'd be very tempting here too. I have a higher grade on Donovan Izaraku, but I wouldn't be surprised if Shamar Stewart were higher on their board. I'm going to take him here and just see what happens. Just see what happens as we move through to the second round. So I'd like to get a receiver if I can, but I'm not going to turn down an opportunity to cornerback if I can get someone like Trey Amos. I'm not going to turn down the opportunity to build some depth at offensive line. If there's a tackle here that I like, Benjamin Morrison is on the board, the corner. Now the Packers, we don't know where they are with the medicals on Benjamin Morrison. I think he is a first round player all day. And if they could get someone like this here, I think it would be great. I'm looking at my opportunities in round 3. Guys like Jalen Royals. Do I want to bank on him being there? Or here at 54, do I go with Eric Ayumaner, who I don't think is going to go that high, Jaden Higgins, Jack Besh. I really like Jack Besh. I think the Packers are really going to like Jack Besh. Can he play on the outside? That's the question. I think he can. I think the Puka Nacua comps are accurate. Can you, in round 3 or round 4, find some more speed? Again, just for sake of we're having fun here, I'm going to take Jack Besh, the receiver, who I think is a great fit on this team. They would need to add speed, but he's a better vertical threat than he's given credit for, and he is potentially a bucket getter for this team, someone who you can just, it's 3rd and 8, He's going to run a slant. He's going to run a dig. He's going to run something to get you open. And I think that that's something that the Packers clearly could use. All right. 87. Marcus Mbow from Purdue. Cameron Williams, the tackle from Texas. Tate Ratledge. They don't take guards, really. Braden Swinson, the pass rusher from LSU, is here. Shamar Turner, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M, who I really like, is here. Joshua Farmer, another player I like, is here. CJ West, who we had on the show a couple weeks ago, is here. Ashton Gelati from Louisville is here. But we did take a first-round pass rusher here. I wish there were a corner I liked a little bit better in this spot, but there's not. In fact, this is all like defensive tackles. Dorian Strong, like the corner from Virginia Tech, is here. There's some running backs here that are worth talking about. Noah Williams is here. I wish he would have tested a little bit better. Round 4 would be my preference. Dante Thornton, the speedy receiver, is here. Cam Scadaboo is here. Will Howard from Ohio State is here. Marcus Mbow, I think that's a player that at this point in the draft, when you're trying to find some offensive line depth, 6'4", 303 pounds, right in that range where the Packers like it. All we have on him timing-wise is a shuttle, but it's in the 80th percentile, a 4.67 shuttle time. That's pretty solid. I wish we had more of a profile on him. Tate Ratledge is here. If they think he's a center, I could see that he is super athletic. And then maybe you have the flexibility with Elgton Jenkins, but they don't take guards. They don't take guards like ever. So do I just go defensive line here? Where we have a little bit more I kind of want to just double up with pass rushers. Or I could take Isaiah Bond here and double up at receiver, add some speed. I'm struggling. As you can tell, I'm struggling. I'm going to take Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle from Florida State. I really like what he brings. There's upside there. He is a little bit raw. But size-wise, I think he fits what they're looking for. Can rush the passer, can defend the run. This is the right spot if you're going to add some depth at the defensive line to do it round 3. I just didn't like the offensive line options there. I would have done it if I thought that there was value there. I just didn't think I was getting good value there. I wanted a corner, but none came. So I think this is the kind of draft that could certainly play out where you get an edge rusher in the first, a receiver in the second, and a depth piece in the third. I think Farmer can be a part of the rotation right away. He's Devontae Wyatt insurance, which is a useful thing to have. Could be, now he's not Kenny Clark insurance because he's not really big enough to play the nose. But Farmer is someone whose tape I came to last week. Doesn't have the elite athleticism, 7.414 RAS, but his jumps were great. The Packers love the jumps. 88th percentile in the jumps. And, the run defense could use a little bit of work. He's a splash run defender. He's very similar to Devontae Wyatt. So that's why he's Devontae Wyatt insurance. He's a sub-package pass rusher with some upside. I have him right in the third round, right where you get him in this mock. He's your Devontae Wyatt replacement, like 1-for-1, if you don't want to give him the money. That makes sense to me. If you want a sub-package pass rusher, not a bad place to get it. Now, Braden Swinson, I think if I hadn't gone first round edge rusher, that would have been someone that would have been appealing to me. But I did. And I didn't feel like I was getting the value adding to there. Though I wouldn't be surprised if that's how this played out. I don't know if this is the sexiest mock, but I like it. Shamar Stewart at 23, Jack Besh at 54, Joshua Farmer at 87. It honestly seems like the kind of thing the Packers could do. So that's kind of the point of this exercise. All right, back tomorrow. Much more here as we get you set for the NFL draft. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast wherever you are on social medias. Subscribe wherever you find podcasts, wherever you listen to us. Go subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. Subscribe over on our YouTube page. Watch us on YouTube so you can stay Locked On Packers.